On May 2012, a ransomware known as the WannaCry virus was released onto the world. To give some context to how this virus became what it was, it all started with a criminal organization who will not be named broke into a three-letter organization's network, and ended up. And it turns out that when they got into this three-letter agency's network, that they had a vault essentially of nation-state attacks or just 0 days that had not been patched or fixed at the time. And so what they did was they took as many as they could, and they sold some of these nation-state attacks or these vulnerabilities on the dark web, and was able to make a profit off of it. And one of the vulnerabilities that they stole ended up being the WannaCry virus. The name of some of the vulnerabilities that they took were named the Eternal Blue and the Double Pulsar. I'm not sure which exactly ended up being the WannaCry virus, but that was just one of the names as far as the list from my research that I was able to uncover. And the WannaCry virus ended up affecting almost 150 different countries, with over the span of like around 230,000 computers were infected with the virus. And what the virus essentially was doing, it was a vulnerability in the Microsoft Windows operating system. And what it would do when it would get on the network was encrypt it would encrypt your information and put it in a list. And because this three-letter agency knew about these vulnerabilities and didn't tell anybody, they didn't tell Microsoft, they didn't tell the InfoSec community about it at all. Everybody that was working on Windows and all previous Windows software operating systems were affected, essentially, or were leaving themselves vulnerable. And so the ransomware, when your computer was infected, the people that sent out the attack were asking for $300 in Bitcoin. But the problem was that when your computer was infected and everything, all your information was encrypted, there was no way to decrypt it, because the way that the virus, from my understanding, the way that the virus worked, it encrypted everything, but there was no key for it, essentially. And instead of everyone that was infected having their own, essentially, like, slot that was specifically set aside for their encrypted information with their name on it, they wouldn't know. Even if you paid the ransom of 300 Bitcoin to get your information back, there was no way to decipher your information from the next person's information. So it was just a jumbled pile of encrypted information, and there was no way to assign it to anybody. So the people that ended up paying the ransom ended up not even getting their stuff back. So that's why they say, even in those ransom attacks, you never know what kind of system these people have set up. So it's better to not pay the ransomware if you can. The hero of this story essentially is a man that goes by the name of Marcus Hutchins, and essentially what he did was was patch the whole of the WannaCry virus. And so from my information, according to Mark Hutchins, even though people's files were encrypted and being held for ransom, it was found out that the files were not able to be decrypted. So the WannaCry virus didn't need to be opened for regular ransomware. Once it was on your computer, it searched for other computers to infect in your network due to the Eternal Blue vulnerability. Stopping ransomware and according to Mark Hutchins, stopping ransomware is almost impossible. And during this time, Mark Hutchins was a virus analyst. Like, that was his job. He analyzed viruses and like how to stop them. And so when he heard about the virus, because the virus was getting a lot of notoriety and it was just everyone knew about it, he asked his friend for a copy because his friend was also working on the virus. So he asked his friend for a copy of it, and he opened it and went into the code and actually saw that the code, when you go through the code, it was hardwired into the code, the code of the virus, that it was trying to connect to a specific URL. And when he looked up the URL, he noticed that the URL didn't exist. So it's essentially an if-then statement. If the virus connects to this URL, stop the virus. If it doesn't, then continue spreading and continue moving around. And so when Marcus figured that out, he registered the URL. When he was going through the code, he registered the URL just to see what would happen. And he ended up stopping it like instantly. And so he gets notoriety and he gets like that fame for stopping the virus, but he even admits like it was just a shot in the dark and it was just a guess. Like he really had no idea that was going to be the end all be all to it. And so to be able to stop it, he registered the URL and locked it. But because the people that ended up finding out that the virus stopped, they started sending a DDoS attack to that specific website that was registered to. So Marcus ended up having to cache the website to be able to handle all the overload that it was getting, or else the virus would continue to spread and keep going because it would be so bogged down. And globally, they say that the WannaCry virus cost about $4 billion and affected the main countries that it affected were Russia, India, Taiwan, and Ukraine were some of the biggest victims. And I think the biggest takeaway from this is like don't pay the ransomware, because you never know what is actually going to happen. One, but two, there's always going to be someone working on it, whether they are an official or it's someone kind of just doing it on their own free time. Because at the time, Marcus wasn't assigned to this. This was just something that, because it was in his wheelhouse, in his job, like this is just something that he did. So yeah, thank you for this, and stay tuned for part 3.